All right, so today I have maybe the smallest, the lightest, the widest Sony G lens that you can buy on the market today. It's the Sony 16mm f1.8. We're going to review it, we're going to tell you a little bit about it, and then ultimately we're going to tell you, is this the best vlogging lens in 2025? Let's go ahead and get this video started right now. So as you can see, it does separate me a little bit from the background. It's going to create some of that bokeh, some of that blur that you're looking for a lot of times when you're vlogging. It's also nice because it is going to be a lens that you can hand hold. I'm hand holding it at 16mm, just holding it by the lens. It's nice and light and compact, so it's easier to hold and it's easier to handle. So I prefer using the 16 to 35 GM lens, but that lens can get quite heavy. That weighs in at almost 1.5 pounds, so that's going to get a little heavy. Now this lens is weighing in at 304 grams or 10 ounces, which is really nice because it does keep it light, compact. It's very easy to hold. I am actually holding my arm out about half bend. Normally when I'm shooting with my Sony 20mm, I have to be way out here. So as you can see, this would be a 16mm field of view, holding this thing out as far as I can go. So I can hold it here without having to really stress my arm and really cause a lot of arm fatigue. Sometimes when you're out vlogging, you're self-shooting yourself, you can get tired holding the lens and the camera together. And this package together is going to weigh me probably around maybe 1.5 pounds, maybe closer to 2 pounds. So that's nice and light. When you compare it to that Sony 16mm, 16 and 35, I should say, that lens is going to definitely weigh the camera down a lot more, and it's going to probably make this thing closer to like 2.5, maybe 3 pounds. Now this lens does come in a very small, tight, compact package. It does have an aperture ring on it along with an aperture lock, which is kind of nice. I do like that Sony's including those locks now on all of their lenses. I like to keep it in the auto mode and just manually adjust it on the camera, but I can see how if you are shooting something professionally, you might want to actually set your aperture. You might want to change it as you go. So it is nice to have those aperture rings. It has an autofocus, manual focus switch, of course, and it has a hold button. And this is a G lens. That means that this lens is going to give you some good coatings and some excellent image quality. It's not their GM lens, it's not their top of the line lens, but I found that their G lenses do hold up pretty close to what their GM lenses are. Now their GM lenses tend to be a lot heavier and bulkier. I have the 20mm f1.8 as well, and I really like that lens, but I think this 16mm might be the lens that I'm now going to be using on a pretty consistent basis when I'm looking for a prime lightweight lens. And part of the reason why is I do really like a very wide field of view. Having a nice wide field of view does help really give you a more immersive experience. It feels like you're here with me versus when you're in really tight, then it feels like I'm more like encroaching on you. We're here, we're kind of wider. This looks a little bit more like if we were standing face to face talking to each other. And that's one of the nice things I like about a super wide angle lens. Now, is this possibly the best vlog lens that Sony has right now? Well, the nice thing about this lens is that it might be. Why? Because if you have something like the Sony a7 IV, the a7R5, this might be a really good lens because you can go into APS-C crop mode and then you'll get like a 24 with the clear image zoom. You can get up to like maybe 35-ish. So that's going to be nice. It pretty much gives you that whole 16 to 35 range without having to carry around a big bulky lens. Being up here on these dunes is a lot of fun. You know, you can hang out up here. You got a nice view of the beach and you can test out the image stability. But see, here's the thing. On this lens, there is no image stability. There is no image stability on this lens because most of Sony's cameras have the IBIS inside of them, and now most of them are coming with active stabilization that's going to really crop into your footage. Now this 16mm really cropped in on some cameras. That's still going to make it wide enough where you could still handhold it, still do a little bit of vlogging. Now the 20mm, when that thing crops in, that gets really tight. But here on the Sony a7S III, I just have active stab on and it seems to be doing okay. It's really that dynamic stabilization that I was talking about there with the super zoom crops. Okay, so now we'll test out a little bit of this active stabilization. So walk down the dunes here and then I'm going to walk down the beach. So you can kind of see what it would be like. Now I'm trying to walk gingerly, but the terrain's a little bit on the angle slope side, so it's a little bit difficult. But this is what the active stabilization will do on the Sony a7S III with this Sony 16mm f1.8. It's not too bad. It does a decent job of really stabilizing the footage. And with a wide lens, sometimes you don't want a super stable footage because you get weird warpy stuff happening in the corners. Where with this lens, you know, it's wide. It's going to give you a nice field of view. It's not going to hopefully be as wobbly because I'm using the camera stabilization. All right, so now I came down by the water, wanted to see what kind of image we get here. See if we get that blurry background in the background. It's a really windy day here, and I have my shotgun mic up on top, and I have the wind muff on there, so it's a pretty windy day. What's nice is I can hold the shotgun mic a little bit closer to me, which is definitely going to make it a little bit better on the audio quality, but it could still be very windy because the wind is blowing directly into the camera system with the microphone, and I have the mic directionally pointed right at me, as super cardioid as you can get on this thing. So a little side mic rant. But anyway, back to the lens here. This lens, I do like how compact and small it is. I like that you can get an f1.8 aperture. I really like, my other lenses, which are like the Sony 24mm GM f1.4 lens. That one's really nice. That gives you a nice separation. I also have the Sony 20mm f1.8, and then I also have the Zeiss 18mm f2.8. Now that lens isn't too bad. I do like all of those lenses. I do think they all have a different purpose, a different feel to them. But this lens has been one that I've been looking for a very long time. And part of the reason why is, yes, I'm shooting on my Sony a7S III right now, but I like how you can use APS-C mode on a lot of the other Sony cameras and crop in a little bit. And then you can also use the clear image zoom on top of that to get even a further reach. So like, for example, when you're shooting low light videography, like I do, I tend to take my kids to a lot of amusement parks and things of that nature. And that's usually when I use a lot of my camera gear, is at amusement parks. Why? Because I like good image, but I like a light setup as well. Using some here like the 16mm f1.8, that's going to give me a really nice light compact option while I'm out shooting, but it's also going to allow me to go down to that f1.8 when it's dark out, when it's nighttime. And that's going to help really bring in the image and make it look bright enough, a lot less noise, things of that nature. And it's going to allow me to use a camera like, say, my Sony a7 IV. Using that crop mode is going to definitely help when I use that, because when I use the Sony a7 IV, one of the downsides, one of the things that I don't like about it is how low the ISO has to be to shoot in S-Log3. I love how my Sony a7S III allows me to shoot at 12,800 ISO for a nice clean ISO at nighttime. And my Sony a7 IV only allows me to go down to 3,200. So being able to go down to an f1.8 is giving me an extra stop and a third of light compared to this camera when I'm shooting on this camera with my 16-35 f2.8 lens. It is really windy. I'm really hoping the audio is coming out okay. But the thing is, when I'm shooting in those scenarios, when I'm actively out there with the kids and I'm running, gunning, so to speak, having this f1.8 aperture is going to be nice. So I was bringing along my Sony 20mm f1.8, but I think on our next trip, I'm going to probably bring this lens along with the 16-35. Now, if I am using the a7 IV, because then if I have something that's better for nighttime, like this f1.8, then that would help me immensely. If you had something like the Sony ZV-E1 along with this lens, I think you're going to get an excellent image quality coming out of this lens. It's going to be fantastic because it's going to be super light, super compact. I mean, ZV-E1 is a super light compact camera. And if you haven't used it, if you want to see a review on it, I'll link it up at the end of this video. With this 16mm f1.8, you're going to have a very light, easy to handle compact setup. One of the other ways you could go is you could go with the Sony a7C II. That's a really nice compact setup as well. And you throw this lens on there, you get the APS-C crop mode, you get the clear image zoom, so you can get this thing out to about a 35mm equivalent. This is going to give you a very nice light compact setup. Might be a little rough on this thing because there's no lens stabilization, as I mentioned. But because it's so light, it's easy to hold. I can hold it in closer to my body and you still get a lot of wide backgrounds. This is going to be a really nice lens. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. All right, so who is this lens for? This lens is for anybody who is looking for a very wide, ultra wide field of view. It's also going to give you a lot more in the screen without having to hold the camera so far away from your body. Would this be good for an interview? Maybe for a very wide angle on an interview. Because it's so light and compact, it's going to fit nicely on any sliders, gimbals. It'll be nice and balanced. The f1.8 aperture is going to give you some blurry background, which is nice. It's going to give you a little bit of subject separation. It's not going to be fantastic. I mean, this lens is pretty much the 20mm f1.8 G lens, except in a wider field of view. It's a lighter, tighter, a lighter compact package, which is nice. So, I mean, essentially it is the 20mm lens with 4mm, which is a huge difference. This is a wide angle lens, and that's what you're going for. This is really a good one. I think it's going to be great for vlogging. I think it's going to be nice for low light videography, especially if you want to get a wide shot in there. I know for me, I think I like this lens better than the Sony 20mm f1.8 lens. I think it's just because I really like a wide field of view. So if that's you, this is the perfect lens for you. If you're into that kind of videography, this is a perfect lens for you. It might be your one and done lens. This is a really great lens. And if you like this lens, I do have another video on the screen right now. It's the Sony 20mm f1.8 review. Go ahead and check that out. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.